Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third and final main session of day one of the Connecting Nature Summit. This session is called Building Natural Networks and Delivering the Deal with Stakeholders. Thanks to everyone tuning in. I'm sure you're aware that we've got many delegates from all around the world, so you're not alone. Before I hand over to our chairs, Marlene and Paula, I just wanted to run through some brief virtual housekeeping. First of all, as I'm sure some of you will be aware now, but the sessions are all being recorded and they'll be available on the Connecting Nature YouTube channel post the summit. Also, please do post on social media. I know many of you are doing that already. Just as a reminder, the hashtag is above you at the moment on the screen or below you, Connecting Nature Summit. And lastly, we would love for all our delegates to engage all throughout the session. You can do that just by typing into the chat. So now I'm going to pass over to Marlene Loder, who's from Drift University in Rotterdam, and Paula van der Gult from University of East London. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Sean. In this session, we will have three speakers that will be presenting their lessons on working with stakeholders in delivering different types of green networks. We will have their presentations first, and then we will have time for your questions. So please use the chat to them as the talks are being delivered. Cato Allard and Sibyl McCain will group your questions so we can ask them to the speakers at the end of the session. The session is based on the work that we at Drift Erasmus University Rotterdam deliver in the Connecting Nature project. We support the work on co-production and reflexive monitoring, two elements of the Connecting Nature framework shown earlier today. The speakers of this session are Max Hislop from Glasgow, Mien Kwartier from Genk, Belgium, and Antonio Puerto González from A Coruña, Spain. And in their projects, they each have a different focus and skill they work on. After their presentation, our co-chair, Paula van der Geert, from the University of East London, will share some reflections with us before we move to the Q&A. Her work in the Connecting Nature project focuses on innovative governance, which is also one of the Connecting Nature framework elements. So let's move to our first speaker, Max Hislop, who has been the program manager for the Glasgow Clyde Valley Green Network Partnership since it was first formed in 2006. He is working to catalyze the delivery of the Glasgow and Clyde Valley Green Network through strategic and partnership working. Prior to this, Mark spent many years in the realm of forestry. Mark, please go ahead.
Thank you, Marlene, and it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to present our work at this fantastic conference today. So I'm going to show you some slides now over the next 10 or 12 minutes, which just give you a bit of backstory about the development of our blueprint for the Green Network over the last 15 years and some of the lessons that we've learnt over the course of those 15 years. As Marlene has already said, I'm the manager for the Glasgow and Clyde Valley Green Network Partnership. So the partnership's remit is to work strategically across our region and to bring about a major improvement in the scale and quality of the green network across the region and to facilitate those who are involved in actual delivery of all things green infrastructure and green network. On this map of Scotland, you can see our region is highlighted there. It's made up of the 8 local authorities that form the Glasgow City region and Glasgow City Council areas at the heart of that region. So our partnership is made up of the local authorities and several government agencies involved in environmental work. And together we've been pursuing this mission to deliver the green network over the last 15 years. We were formed in 2006, as Marlene has already said, And we've been working towards the development of this blueprint, which is graphically represented here. And this is how it sits in our region. So in 2006, there was a new structure plan, a strategic plan for our region, which had just been published. And we were formed at this time. And within that structure plan, the Green Network was represented like this. It shows the Green Network permeating the conurbation of Glasgow and linking out to green network assets around the conurbation within the region. But this image was formed through discussion with local planners who had identified individual opportunities within their localities, and then they were kind of worked to link up. So it was based on this kind of discourse rather than any kind of analysis. So we embarked soon after our formation and thinking about how we might think about the Green Network in a more analytical way. So by 2008, we'd commissioned, and the work had been completed, to undertake a habitat network model for our region. We called it the Integrated Habitat Network model. And that looked at 4 different habitat types and looked at the habitats within our region, but more importantly, how species can move between those habitat patches across a landscape, therefore forming a kind of a network. And here's a zoomed in output of just one of those habitats. In this case, it's woodland and one part of Glasgow, on the edge of Glasgow, showing the habitat patches, the woodland habitat patches in green. But the modelling looks at the ability of species that rely upon woodland habitat to move across the landscape. And so the model also includes this intelligent buffer, which shows how those habitat patches are connected or disconnected from one another. And so with this valuable bit of analysis, we felt it might be possible for urban planners to use the model to think about where the footprint of new developments or new roads might impinge on habitat networks, and either avoid impinging upon those habitat networks or have some sort of mitigation to reduce the impact on the habitat networks. So we involved planners in the process of developing this, and we presented our work at the end, and we thought that they would take it up with gusto. But actually the learning point was that busy urban planners won't use a natural network model, no matter how clever it is. They're too busy, and they really don't want an output like that and have to analyze it and make decisions about it. And that was a bit of a shame. Certainly made me feel sad, because we put a lot of time and money into developing this model. So we had to think again. So a little later on, we developed a different approach using opportunity mapping, bringing different GIS layers together across the region to think about what the opportunities are for delivering our priorities for the Green Network. So we were looking at land use opportunities like vacant and derelict land and those areas where we knew there was going to be development and existing green space, and matching that up with data sets about our priorities. And you can see in this slide that one of our priorities was habitat connectivity. So we used the model that we'd already developed as one of the GIS layers in this opportunities mapping. And the result of that is that by the time the 2016 development plan for the region came out, the strategic plan for the region came out, our opportunities mapping work and the outputs of that was embedded within the plan. And you can see that there were 16 strategic delivery areas, as we call them, identified across our region, which included the habitat network modeling. And that's great. I mean, the learning point from that was that natural network modeling embedded within a strategic plan will be used by planners. And they did use this as in part of their thinking when it came to delivering developments on the ground. But here, of course, all we're talking about is points on a map, and it's not really a network. However, it was pretty cool that we were able to get it embedded in the strategic plan. But by 2019, our thinking had more fully formed, and we were able to launch our blueprint for the Green Network. And this is a graphical representation of that blueprint you can see on screen just now. But in fact, It's made up of two networks. One is an access network. You might call that an active travel network. But here we're talking about active travel, which is off-road, using green space and green infrastructure to make connections across the city region, linking people up with where they live, to where they need to get to, their shops, their work, but also green network assets across the region. So that's one part of the blueprint. The other part is a habitat network, and this is directly building upon that network modeling that we did all those years ago, but we've improved it this time, and we've identified the opportunities to deliver links within the habitat networks in this new modeling. And this was very well received by not only planners, but our political leaders in the region. The learning point here is, I think, that if you have strong graphics, strong, simple graphics, then people like them and they will make use of them. They don't necessarily have to understand the underlying data, which is very complex underneath, and we're giving them simple solutions, simple direction as to what needs to be done. That's great. So we're moving now from a period of developing our plans, and really our skills have matured over the last decade or so, to a point where we can move from development and into a delivery mode. So we're on the cusp of moving into this major upscaling of delivery for the Green Network across the region. And we're starting by focusing in on just one element of the habitat network, in particular broadleaf woodlands. And you can see from our graphic here that the woodlands kind of straddle the or surround the conurbation of Glasgow and stretch down the River Clyde corridor to the south. And we're building a project called the Clyde Climate Forest. It's timely with the build up to COP26 in our region later this year that we are building it around the basis of delivering a climate forest. So we just look at that graphic in its context. Of course, what we're looking at here is just a graphic. And as I've already mentioned, underlying it is a lot of analytical data in GIS form. And this is the output for our region, looking at the woodland habitat network. You can see here in dark green the woodland habitat networks, and the green spots, the green stars, are the opportunities to make significant improvement to that habitat network, to make significant connections between the existing networks. There are 101 of those there. But another aspect we need to think about when it comes to climate change is that species are going to have to migrate north as the climate changes. So we're keen to make a migration route which, if you like, threads the needle between upland areas in blue, the conurbation in grey, and the topographical pinch point, which is central Scotland, that links the south of Scotland to the Highlands of Scotland. And so that is a key ambition of the Clyde Climate Forest. So the Clyde Climate Forest is helping to deliver the regional woodland habitat network component of the blueprint, but it's actually going to be doing more than that. It's also going to be about increasing tree canopy cover in the urban parts of Glasgow where there is currently low tree canopy cover. And it's also going to be about expanding forests and woodlands more generally as a way of helping the region to mop up the carbon emissions it will be emitting over the coming years. And of course, these two dimensions are very popular with the public and with politicians at this moment in time. Together, the three elements form a nice alliteration of canopy, connectivity, and carbon, something which is quite easy for the public and politicians to remember and get their head around. And we've set targets, which again are reasonably easy to get your head around, which means that over the next 10 years or so, we will be delivering that scale of ambition. I guess the learning point from this is that we've packaged up our natural network, our green network, within the other, what you might call more sexy outputs of involving people in urban forestry and the ideas of locking up carbon emissions in new tree planting. And it's made the whole idea easier to sell. And that's helping us get the resources we need to deliver not only the green network, but also these other elements as well. So that's how we're moving from the blueprint into delivery. We're starting with the woodland element, but we're already embarking upon delivering a sister project, which is looking at bogs and peatland and restoring those, particularly as driven by the needs of climate change. Thank you very much for listening. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Max, for sharing your lessons on how you involve urban planners to embed your work in their plans. I also see some questions coming from the chat. Thank you also for adding these questions and keep them coming. Our second speaker is Mien Kwartier, project leader for social innovation with the Steamer Valley in the city of Genk. Here, her work is dedicated to connecting people with nature through communication, activities, steamer deal and participation. Mien, please take the word and tell us about your work there and what these innovative steamer deals entail.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Marleen. As the title for the session today is Building a Network and Delivering the Deal with the Stakeholders, I'm proud to present our steamer deals. This is one way for us to involve stakeholders and also a way to build up a network in our project. I think that the word deal already gives it away a little. But then steamer, what is steamer? Well, you can see here in the red rectangle on the map of the city of Genk, steamer is a stream that runs through the city of Genk and it connects different neighborhoods and also some strategic city sites such as the sports center, the cultural center and the city center. It also connects two large nature reserves and is a nature reserve also on itself. So the Steamer Valley could be a very important connector for the city of Genk. Unfortunately, it has been neglected or even forgotten for quite a long time. But since 2015, the city wants to develop the Steamer Valley. So this is our project. I'm sorry. The click is not working. Okay, so the project started as a spatial and ecologic transformation project, but after some time we've added social and economic transformation to our objectives as well. And this is quite novel for us as a Department of Environment and Sustainable Development. Yes. Okay. Yep. Okay, so apparently we've lost the stream somewhere, so I'll continue my explanation. So the project of the development of the Steamer Valley started as a spatial and ecologic transformation project, but after some time we've added social and economic transformation to our objectives, which is quite novel for us as a Department of Environment and Sustainable Development. But we did so because we believe that these types of transformation can go hand in hand and can even reinforce each other. The Steamer Deals is our way to achieve the social and economic transformation. Then what is a steamer deal? The steamer deal, the word says itself, it's a cooperation between two or more partners. One partner is obviously always the city of Genk, as you can see with the black logo on the bottom of the picture. The other partner or partners can be a variety of partners. It can be a single citizen or an association or an entrepreneur or even a big company. And we always, in a steamer deal, we always look for a win-win situation for both or all the partners involved. So every steamer deal is a tailor-made cooperation. The win for the city of Genk is always a contribution to our objectives for the steamer program. The win for the partner depends on his or her idea or dream or project. To help us in communicating this concept, we have identified 8 categories. On the slide, they are noted in Dutch, but I will translate them for you. So the 8 categories are growth, leisure, water, meeting, creativity, nature, happiness, and entrepreneurship. And I think you already see that there are a lot of possibilities with these 8 categories. Then if you look at the circle, you see small white lines connecting the different partners. Well, this is our hope that with the steamer deals, we can build up a steamer community in which the partners can find each other to close deals and to cooperate. Another thing that we hoped with the steamer deals is that a kind of steamer brand would emerge. It's not on a picture, but that's something we hoped. So now we have the concept. You know what the steamer is, you know what a steamer deal is. So let me give you some examples of steamer deals. At the bottom of this slide, you can see we have steamer honey, we have steamer ice cream, we have steamer beer, we also have a steamer biscuits. So our steamer brand is there. It is made in co-creation with the partners. So they've done it all by themselves. All the products are made by the partners. So we have our steamer brand. And then if I continue on the pictures on the top left, we have a community garden in the Steamer Valley. In cooperation with a local museum, we had an artist in residence who worked on the Steamer Valley for a whole year. Then the Steamer Lab, you see, is a citizen science project together with some knowledge institutions in which citizens measure the water quality of the steamer. We have volunteers working on nature management. Together with a school for children with special needs, we made a bare footpath in the Steamer Valley. And together with a running club, we organized a steamer run. So these are just some examples. Until now, we have 37 steamer deals. Some of them have stopped already, others are ongoing. And we see there's a large diversity in the steamer deals. There's a diversity in types of partners, in categories, of course, also in length, in scale. So we see a whole range of deals, and we're very proud of that. So I think you can already see that this is a large contribution to our steamer project, and certainly for the social and economic transformation. But what is it? What's in it, for the partners? What's in it from the city and okay, so what do we have to offer them? Well, first of all, we have financial support. Since this year, we have a steamer fund and all the partners can apply for a maximum amount of 500 euros, so it's quite small. We have material support. For example, the design of the packaging of the steamer honey and the steamer beer you've just seen is made by our colleagues in the city. We also have communicative support, which is for the steamer products, for example, very important. This is a bit too fast. Sorry, can we go back one slide? Yes, thank you. Then we can also inspire. I'm sorry. There's something wrong with the clicker, I suppose. Yes. So after the communicative support, we also can inspire our partners with new ideas, and we can connect them to the steamer network we already have right now, and so on and so on. In most of the cases, we see that the support we give is a combination of these different types of support. So, yeah. We started with the steamer deals in 2019 as an experiment, and then in 2020 we launched it. So until now we have learned already some lessons. One of them is that flexibility is very important. I think that's the most important one. There is no heavy procedure. There are no forms to be filled in. There's only one single point of contact, and that makes it very easy to close a steamer deal. We also took this learning lesson in the procedure for the STEAMER fund, and we made a very light procedure to apply for a subsidy. Then another one we've seen is that the location is very important. And as you know, the STEAMER Valley is a location in the city of Genk, and the connection with the location can be a cause for a STEAMER deal because you feel connected, you want to contribute, and it can be an effect of a STEAMER deal. For example, we have partners that have no connection with the STEAMER Valley at all, but because we have a STEAMER deal, they feel connected, and this opens up new opportunities for new STEAMER deals. And then, last but not least, the STEAMER deals are an enlargement of our capacity. If we see what all these partners are doing in the STEAMER Valley, we could have never done this with our small STEAMER team in the City Hall. So all together with the partners, we I'm sorry, I was distracted. With all these STEAMER partners, we co-create or co-produce the project of the development of the STEAMER Valley. So that was a short introduction. I'm sorry for the disturbance, and thank you for your attention. I'll be happy to answer some questions afterwards.
Thank you, Mien. Despite the technical issues you had to face, your lessons from working with the STEAMER deals are very interesting to listen to. So again, a reminder to write down all the questions for Mien in the chat if you haven't already. And now I will introduce our last speaker, Antonio Prieto Gonzalez. He's an architect with a multidisciplinary background. His current role as a project technician means that he is responsible for the development and implementation of the Connecting Nature project in the city of A Coruña. We welcome you to talk with you on your learning journey in working with the multifunctional urban gardens.
Thank you, Marlene. Hello, everyone. Let me first briefly introduce my city. For those of you who are not familiar with it, we're located at the northwest of Spain, surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. So this means we don't have many open spaces available for green areas. And this is why nature-based solutions are so important for us, because they are multifunctional. So why urban gardens? Why did we focus on urban gardens specifically? Well, because urban gardens are a cost-efficient way to address many of the city's goals, and at the same time they're small-scale projects, which means it's easier to implement innovative processes on them and then upscale that to a citywide level. Urban gardens are also aligned with many of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, with the European Urban Agenda and with the Spanish Urban Agenda. When we look at the benefits that nature-based solutions can deliver, it's very important to be aware that they are very multifunctional. They deliver benefits on many different levels. And in the case of urban gardens, we had this in mind from the beginning. So it's not only biodiversity and improved resilience against climate change challenges, but also we think of urban gardens as a place for the community to gather, to increase community social cohesion, community engagement, to create intergenerational relationship and intercultural relationships, and to increase the feeling of ownership towards public space. They can also be a place for helpful recreational opportunities, and urban gardening is a moderate physical activity too, and they are also an opportunity for new sustainable economic activities. So, because in our city, we didn't have much experience with urban gardens. We started in 2018 with the project to implement 3 gardens in 3 different neighborhoods in the city. And we had in total 218 plots available for citizens. And again, the multifunctional of urban gardens was present from the beginning, and we always thought of the potential that they had as a social tool, and that's why we gave priority to vulnerable collectives like migrants or retired people and unemployed persons to access the plots. There were also some other initiatives in the city, like school gardens, our community gardens, in which we were working with NGOs and associations, and private urban gardens, some of them non-profit and some of them commercial. But these initiatives were all disconnected from each other. So this is why we wanted to create a network that gave cohesion to all of them and integrate the different initiatives together. Something that was happening too was that the employment department in the city was involved in another European project, the Urbac Urban project, and they were organizing a training course for unemployed people on organic agriculture to raise the employability of these unemployed people and to help them become garden organizers and to create their own enterprises in this field. So as you can see, we had already different departments in the municipality connected to the initiative of urban gardens. So it was not only the Department of Environment in which I work, but also the Department of Employment with this training course, and also the Department of Education with the school gardens. And that's why it's so important to embed the project of the Urban Gardens Network into the city strategies, because it's not just a project that belongs to a department. It's really a project that, because it's so multifunctional, can really address many different issues at the same time, and is also concerning different departments. And the first step we took to integrate this project into the city strategic goals was the Sustainable Urban Development Strategy that was approved in 2017 in the city of A Coruña. This strategy had access to ERDF funds, and it included a specific line to enable the establishment of urban gardens in the city. This Sustainable Urban Development Strategy is directly dependent from the mayor's office, with representation from the different departments too, and also from the external stakeholders. But this was only the first step, because this strategy was limited and it had a number of projects included, but it didn't include all of the municipal projects. So the next step to further take this to the next level is the urban agenda. And in our case, in Spain, the Spanish urban agenda was in 2018, and A Coruña is actually one of the first municipal governments to implement the action plan for the local implementation of the Spanish urban agenda in the cities. And this agenda is aligned with the European Urban Agenda too, and with the United Nations Sustainable Goals and the United Nations Agenda. When we take a look at the Sustainable Development Goals, we can realize that such a small project as the urban gardens can really impact many of these goals, and they can really contribute to many of these goals. It's actually quite impressive the way a small project like this can really benefit many of the global objectives of the city. And that's why it's so important to have it embedded from the beginning in the city strategies. So how did we manage to break those silos? How did we manage to connect with the other departments and to work together with them to develop the project? Well, as I was saying before, we had some previous experiences in the employment department because they had this training course for unemployed people on urban agriculture. They had also been collaborating with education department because the trainees for the training course actually helped build the 5 school gardens. That was a pilot project for school gardens in the city, and the gardens were built by the trainees of the employment course. So we tried to include them and make a connection with those 2 departments, but also with other departments like the tourism and markets department, because in A Coruña we have a network of municipal markets, and we have also an organic market happening every 2 weeks. So we thought this was a great opportunity to connect the markets network with the gardeners so they could come to the markets and showcase their products or even sell them eventually. And what did we do to make it work? So what was the key to make this interdepartmental work successful? Well, we believe that one of the keys of this work was combining two levels. First of all, the high level with the elected politicians, and we were able to organize a meeting with the relevant councillors and heads of department, and we could present them our project for a network of urban gardens, and we managed to secure their political support. And this also enabled us to connect on the low level with other technicians from the different departments and start working together. And for example, we've been working very closely with the technicians responsible of the URBAC group and project at the employment department, but also the technicians from the Edu department who are responsible for the development of the school gardens project. But the key here is that both levels are equally important, because sometimes it happens that you have the high level and maybe the politicians, the councillors have a good relationship and they share a common view or they have common goals and objectives. But then when it comes to the practicalities, you don't really get the departments working together and each department is doing their thing. So you don't really get this integrated approach. But the opposite thing can happen too. And sometimes you don't have the high level connections, but you do have some low level, for example, you know someone from another department and you start a project together informally, but then you face a lot of barriers and you can only go that far without the political support from the high level. So that's why we believe that both levels are important, and it's very, very important to work at both levels at the same time from the beginning. Of course, we also face some barriers, and with some of the departments, it wasn't that easy to engage them. We had some contacts with the urbanism department too, and also with the social services departments, but it wasn't that easy to contact with them. And this has also a lot to do with the second barrier, which is finding the right people to contact, because you need to find the right people who has the time and the energy to work together with you in this project. So it's not always the first person you think of, and you need to keep thinking and to keep looking for the right people to enable these projects to work in a horizontal way with all the departments. And finally, I wanted to highlight that we're not just working within the municipality with the different departments, but we're also working with the external stakeholders, and we have a local group in urban agriculture going with the presence of all the relevant stakeholders like Urban Gardeners Association, the neighborhoods associations, the school community with teachers and parents, professional gardeners and trainees from the training course from the employment department, some SMEs, the university, the NGOs. So we're having regular meetings with them, and they're helping us co-design the network and the next steps to take, and it's been quite successful. We used to have these meetings face-to-face, but now, because of the COVID situation, we have to have them virtually. But still, we have a very engaged group, so it's working quite well. And yeah, those are some of the steps we have been taking in A Coruña to try and break the silos and work together with all the relevant departments and all the stakeholders to co-design a long-term strategy for our Urban Gardens network. And I hope this was of interest to you. Maybe some of you can learn from our experience. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio. That was really fantastic presentation on the urban gardens in A Coruña. As Marlene said at the beginning, I'm Paula. I'm the co-host for this session, co-chair. And I'll just now spend a few minutes reflecting back on the three fantastic case studies that we've heard, because I think what's really interesting about having these three very different examples is that actually we can start to draw out a coherent kind of governance story in a way, because this idea of multiple scales is important in terms of nature-based solutions, not just spatially, but from a governance perspective as well. And there were, some unifying themes that I pulled out around the strategic and the operational and the importance of both of those. There was something around communication and then adaptability. So if we think back to Max's presentation first, the Glasgow and Clyde Valley Green Network. A very high-level strategic starting point for that. And, a key thing that I took from there was that this took a long time in planning. It's still an ongoing project. But they have always had delivery in mind eventually. So it's how they've managed to keep that strategic story and then bring it more and more towards delivery. And I particularly liked the confession from Max around how having the wonderful data, which of course is really important, is only part of the story. If the people you need to be using that data can't access it, that it's not communicated in a way that works for them, then it will sit on a shelf in a report or on a computer model. So I think that's a really important lesson for everybody. And then the second presentation from Mien, the City of Genk, again, really interesting how they have evolved their thinking. And, the Steamer Valley, which, could be quite a neglected part of the city, they have a very clear vision for how strategically that can become a really important asset for the city and deliver multiple benefits. But they also saw that there were wider opportunities, and they started with a sort of ecological and spatial approach, but realised, latterly that actually bringing in social and economic transformations would really just add so much value. And I think the Steamer deals are a brilliant example of innovative thinking, how to think laterally about that, and also about, something that's doesn't come naturally for local authorities, how to develop a flexible approach when you're talking to people that you want to engage and that you want to really feel a sense of ownership over some of these solutions. And helping them with branding and communication is really a way to help those individuals and those individual associations and companies to feel part of something bigger. And I think that really can create a snowball effect. And as Mien said, have much more impact than the city could have on its own, or that those individuals could have on their own. And finally, with Antonio and A Coruña, again, a slightly different take, because here, the urban gardens, Antonio describes them as, small scale, but actually you can see that these small interventions, if they're framed within this strategic approach, you can build the case for how they are really developing multifunctional benefits across the city. And I really like the linking to the strategic objectives of the city, to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, because that can really help with breaking down some of those silos, with engaging with other departments, because the cities we work with, those silos are one of the major barriers to achieving multifunctional benefits. So taking the time to work at the two levels, not only the operational level for delivering urban gardens, but also at the strategic level to make those connections, to show that there is common ground strategically as well as literally in terms of delivering something like urban gardens, is really important. So I think that's been a fascinating collection of slides, and I think now it's time that we're going to hand back to Marlene as co-chair for the questions and discussion.
Thank you, Paula, for sharing your reflections with us. I'm sure that makes people think of even more questions for the speakers. So please keep them coming in the chat. The first question that we received was directed to Max, but I think it's a relevant question for all the speakers. So Max, I would like you to answer it first, and then I will hand it over to the other ones. So the question is from Mike Harrison, and he said you had to learn the hard way, facing many challenges throughout the process. How are you sharing your experiences with others so they can benefit from it?
Well, that's a very good question. I suppose my first thought is I'm sharing that information now with everybody through this conference. So that's a very direct way of confessing where we've had success and also where we've not had less success. and hopefully people can take something from that and think about it. And of course, I welcome people getting in touch with me to talk about it further. But I suppose more generally, in the Glasgow region, we're only part of a much broader project to deliver green networks right across central Scotland. And in some ways, I think our region has been a test bed for what works and what doesn't work so well. And the blueprint that I referred to is now being rolled out across central Scotland, right across other regions in central Scotland. And they are benefiting from our experience. And of course, their development time will be much shorter as a result of that. They haven't had to go down the dead ends that we've gone down in order to find a way forward. So we're communicating that obviously to other partners in central Scotland. And then of course we've got a very, I think, very rich resource in our website, our Glasgow and Clyde Valley Green Network website, which I know many people visit, but I would encourage others to take a look at that to learn what we've done over the years.
Thank you, Max. Lots of different ways of sharing your lessons. Mien, can you take us along with your thoughts on this? How do you share your lessons from the Steamer deal and also the other work you have done with your colleagues in the Steamer Valley?
Well, of course, also by this presentation, but in the City Hall, we also try to find Steamer deals with other departments. So this is kind of a way of learning by doing. And that's, I think, a nice way to share. And then also we invite other colleagues or other departments to think about Steamer deals or to go, well, to look for further possibilities in the future. So we invite everyone to think along with us.
Thank you. That also relates a little bit to the question. We come back to you, Antonio, later, but I thought this connects really well to the question that Wendy Campbell asked in the chat. And that was it difficult to get consensus in the department on what the Steamer model would be implemented in the first place? And her second question was, have other municipalities or departments followed your example?
Well, on the last questions, I don't think other departments or other municipalities have followed our example. But was it difficult to have the consensus? I don't think so, because thanks to Connecting Nature, we could enlarge our team to achieve socioeconomic goals. So because this is now a part, that's for my position. So I'm now a part of this team, of this department, and it's my task to achieve these goals. So it was obvious already, and now we find this concept of the Steamer deal. So that's our way to do it. But no, there was not difficult. And also as I said, we started in 2019 as an experiment. So we did a very small step by step, and we learned by doing. So yeah, that's, I think, also a way to let's say to convince people that it's a good concept.
Because you have the practical examples also to give them for the convincing. Yeah. Thank you so much. Antonio, we have you back now, so I would like you to ask you to answer also the question on how you are sharing your experiences with others so that they can benefit from it.
Yes. So first of all, we have this local group on urban agriculture, in which we are sharing the things we do to the wider public and to the stakeholders. And then internally in the municipality, we are planning to use the Connecting Nature framework document, in which we are documenting everything we do. All of the process is being written down, and all of the steps we take. So we are planning to have this translated into Spanish, because it's in English now, so it can reach all of our colleagues, and they can learn from the things we're doing here, and also implement similar ways of working in their departments.
Great, thank you. That's also a very practical way of sharing your knowledge within your city. There's another question for me, and that's from Martin Volkner, and he asked, what's the range of the costs of the steamer deal?
Yeah, that's difficult to say because most of the time we make use of the services we have in the city. So, for example, the design or the communication department did the design of the packaging. So we don't keep count on the costs of what they do. It's just we make use of the services that are there. So yeah, I can't say we don't keep count.
Okay, thank you. Maybe it is for these type of events or the sharing. It might be interesting to have this type of information as well, so others can also have a idea of the type of projects. But I assume that they vary a lot, right? It also depends really on the deal. Yeah. Okay, we have a lot of comments in the chat about the challenges around siloed departments, as well as the connection between decision makers and at the operational level. So this one is for Antonio. What is your most important advice to deal with this?
Yes, so as I said in my presentation, I think it's key to work at both levels. So of course, it's very important to be dealing with the people who are taking the decisions, because otherwise you won't get anywhere if you don't have the support from decision makers. You can do a lot of work, but then it won't go into practice. But at the same time, you have to be working at the low level, at the more operational level, because even if you have the political support and the political agreement, you need to develop a plan to take that into reality. And it's important that the plan to really implement the actions is in connection with other departments too. So you're not, again, working in silos at the operational level, even when you have the agreement of different departments at the high level.
Thank you very much. I was looking at the other speakers, or Paula, do you have something to add from your experience to these questions on the silo bursting?
Well, I think it is, as I mentioned earlier, and as Antonio has said, it can be one of the major barriers, particularly when you're looking at nature-based solutions at scale. And I think, some of the things we're looking at is around what are the skills that people working in local authorities, or even people who are working in communities, what skills would it be useful to have to be able to communicate? I think a lot of it is around communication, and it's around sharing. And I think, it's this idea that working in discrete projects isn't enough, that actually making the connections from one project to the other, from one team to the other, is absolutely vital to ensure that you get that sense of sustainability that you're building. And I think that's been reflected in all three of the speakers. And, really context is everything as well. So within your local area, looking for how you can build those alliances is really key.
Thanks, Paula. I have a last question that's for Max and Antonio. Thinking of Min's presentation about the steamer deals, do you see any opportunities for your projects to collaborate with entrepreneurs in your city or region to reach your goals? Max, would you like to go first?
I think there must be opportunities for working with entrepreneurs. I think we can learn a lot from the steamer deals about how we can bring that kind of approach to the Glasgow City region. Like all countries, there are all sorts of economic opportunities associated with nature-based solutions and delivering nature networks and so on. And we need to think innovatively and creatively about how we can bring new enterprises to the projects that we are delivering. Whether that's to do with, well, it was interesting to see in Mean's presentation things like honey and beer and that sort of thing. People in Glasgow like honey and beer. We perhaps ought to be thinking about how we can be developing those kind of projects associated with the Green Network in Glasgow and other opportunities as well. There has to be economic opportunities. There are economic opportunities associated with delivering nature-based solutions, and we need to find ways of realizing that. I think that what we've learned from Mean today is that she's much further ahead than we are in Glasgow, but we're quick to learn. We're looking to catch up.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree with Max. I think what Mean has shown us really proves that they are really way ahead of many of other cities in this matter. And particularly in our case, in A Coruña, we have been working a lot with stakeholders. We have been working a lot in participatory processes, but we don't have much experience working with the private sector. We have some contacts with entrepreneurs, but we don't have such a structure as they have organized in Genk, and it's definitely an inspiration for us.
Thank you very much to all the speakers and all the participants for all your interesting questions and answers. I'm very delighted to the lessons and experiences from all of you working on nature-based solutions, not for but with the different urban actors in our cities and regions. And we also learned that there's still a lot to learn. And we need events like this to allow us the time to reflect upon our approaches and to improve the strategies and be inspired by others. So thanks to the speakers also for collaborating and preparing this session, and my colleagues at Drift for organizing this chat and clustering the questions. And of course, thank you, Paula, for your wonderful co-chair and sharing your valuable reflections. So Sean, I want to hand back to you for your final remarks.
Thanks, Marlene. And thanks everyone for tuning in there. There were so many good things happening in the chat. I was actually getting distracted by the chat there, so apologies for that. But that's the end of the formal sessions today. The platform is opened all the way throughout though until Thursday, so you can use this time to explore the other parts of the platform. There's loads of content there. Just want to draw your attention to our call to action for the COP26 conference. You've got an opportunity there to answer a series of questions which will be consolidated and dealt with during the COP conference by our colleagues at Climate Alliance. So please do have a look at that. Tomorrow is a bit of a later start here for us in Europe. The first welcome session will be given by the project coordinator Marcus Collier, who we met earlier today at 11:45 GMT, before our first main stage session, which is especially exciting for us here in Glasgow, because the Connected Nature team in Glasgow will be discussing our own work during the Naturally Smart Cities session at 12 noon GMT on the main stage. So once again, thank you again to all the speakers and participants today and all the delegates as well. Have a nice evening and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, guys.